I remember looking to my left, and on the window is my hand.
Think I'm gonna die?
No. The dun 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 was like my arm. Hi, my name is Lidia, and I lost my arm in an ATV accident. The way my accident happened was not in a way that I expected it to happen, and I didn't see it coming. It's very it's shocking when you hear like my story and the way it happened, because you would have like never thought that I would be here talking to you guys or even here live. I remember everything that happened. So September 5th of the year 2020, I decided to go camping with my family, with part of the church. And during this time, I was actually working 2 jobs and I was in college. So, you know, I, like any 19-year-old, I was 19 years old as well. I was working 2 jobs. I was in college. I was, you know, part of church. I was a part of the church ministries, and life was good. And my mom decided to invite me to a church camp. And at first I didn't want to go. I just had a gut feeling that I didn't want to go. Like, and I had a gut feeling that I didn't like where this was going. Like, and my mom was more like, oh, like, mija, my mom's Hispanic. So she was like, come on this trip with us. Like, you know, you haven't spent as much time with us. I know you've been busy with life. And as any daughter, I wanted to go on this trip with them and have time with them, spend time with them, because you know, you never know, life's too short and you never know when it's going to be your last day. So I was like, you know what, like, I have been working a lot, I've been doing college, all of that, so why not go with them on this trip? And as we're going, I still remember on my way to camp writing a poem that I literally still have. And as you read it, you can see like uncertainty of like my words and how they're coming out, that I just felt like something was off, and I felt like something was uncertain, and I felt like there was just a gut feeling. And I finished writing the poem as I'm on my way to the camp, and then we get there and I see a friend of mine, and I'm like, oh my gosh, like there's a friend here that I have, and we leave it at that. So the next day comes, which is Saturday, and I noticed that there's like ATVs, there's razors. I've always been like super adventurous, so, and like super sporty, and I've always liked, you know, new things. So I was like, oh my gosh, like let's ride this. I decide to go on the quad and everything's fine. I go on with the girls, and then we go on the ATV, and the ATV, the guy was driving it, and then he let me drive it for the first time in my life. And then the second time I decided to drive it, and I saw nothing wrong with it. I was like, this is safe. This literally feels like a car. Like, you can go forward, you can go backwards, park, reverse, everything. Like, everything is normal about this ATV. Like, I decided to ask all the parents of the girls, which was a 15-year-old, a 13-year-old, and a 12-year-old. I asked all of their parents if it was okay if I can take their daughters with me, because I know it's a big responsibility to take like kind of kids with you. They were kind of kids, I'm not sure, but all of their parents said it was fine, and I told them to actually wear their seatbelt. So everyone wore their seatbelt. I looked back, everyone was wearing their seatbelt, and I was wearing my seatbelt. I remember driving it, and I was driving the ATV, and everything was fine. Like, I wasn't going crazy. I was probably even going like 30 miles per hour, 40 miles per hour, like a normal car, you know, like if you're driving in the street, maybe like 30 miles per hour. And by this time, like, we were trying to get away from campsites, because if you've went off-roading, you know that it's not a good idea to ride where there's people, because people can get hurt, kids can get in the way. There was like a hill that kind of like took a turn, but it wasn't such a big hill, but it still took a turn. And I remember as I take a turn, we start going like kind of a little down, and the road is very uneasy, if that makes sense. The road is very bumpy. There's rocks, and my ATV starts like moving from like side to side, and I'm just like, what's going on? Like, is this normal? So I remember just casually just riding, like if you're just riding in the street and you're minding your business, you're just riding, you know, normal. And mind you, like, the girls in the back are like screaming out of fun, because they're like, oh, this is exciting, you know. We got a little momentum from going a little bit down the hill, so I don't even think I was even really pressing on the gas really. And I remember the girl next to me looks at me, and she starts seeing like fear in my eyes, because I'm like, you know, like, oh my gosh, like, is this normal? Instead of going from side to side, it just like starts going straight like normal. I'm like, okay, we're good. So I let that sit in, like, okay, we're fine. And there was like hope in my eyes, when everything just spiraled and that it, everything just turned upside down. And it wasn't the case where like that little, like it was like that little hope that I had just got crushed in like seconds. I still remember the ATV, it was getting straight, and then next thing you know, it falls to the side. And like the way it fell to the side was that it was going like this, and then it just goes like this, and then it slides a little bit. Yeah, it didn't hit a tree, it didn't hit something. It was just it was going, and it was going from side to side a little bit, like kind of not, and it was going from side to side, not in a drastic way. Like what happened was that there was a rock in the middle of the road, and the tire actually hit the rock. And what happened was that it hit the tire, the rock, so it caused it to like go like this, and then it just slid. And the way it slid was not anything drastic either. The way it slid was just like this. And what ended up happening was that it was a life and death situation. So I still remember it sliding. And it's so crazy because all I heard was beep, which is usually what you hear in like movies. Like, when people are in the army and they hear that sound like beep. I remember looking to the side and I basically see this right here, like dug into the sand. So I saw this part of my arm buried into the ground. But the thing is that it wasn't buried. And I was like, how did my arm get buried into the ground? I remember looking to my left, and on the window is my hand. So this is like buried into the ground. And then I look to the side and I see my actual hand, but it's like bloody and it's like purple. I still remember when the accident happened, when I was going with the girls, I reached out and I remember just going in the razor when it was going side to side. When it starts getting straight, that's when it just does a whoosh. As the razor is falling to my side, I remember just extending my arm out. It's like if I fall right now, my first instinct is to like try to hold myself. So that was my first instinct, to hold myself and like basically stop the razor from really just hitting anything, which it didn't. But as it's sliding, I remember just reaching out, and as I reached out, the razor went dun 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 dun. And the dun 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 was like my arm. But my arm was still intact. My arm was together, but the razor had basically ran over my arm. So that's why I extended my arm out, was to hold on to myself. And as I tried to hold on to myself, as the razor was sliding, my arm basically got like left behind a little bit, but it was still intact to the point where I still had this, but the arm was like intact, but it was crushed. And mind you, like, we are in the middle of nowhere. There is no cars in sight. There is no people in sight. There is no kids in sight. There is not even other people riding ATVs or riding razors, riding quads. I knew where we were. I knew where we were at. I knew where we fell. I knew my surroundings. I knew that there was just trees. Back there was trees, and in front of me there was trees. So I was like, how are we going to get out of this? Like, there's no way. And I remember just even telling my friend, like, looking back and like, are the girls okay? Are the girls okay? Like, my biggest worry were the girls. Like, I wouldn't be able to live with the fact of something just happening to the girls, and whether it was an accident, but still taking that with me would have been more painful for me than like not having an arm. I prefer something happened to me than something happened to the girls, honestly. The girls are like, can't get out. They're trying to like see if they can get out through the window. And like I said, I had taken off my seatbelt. I still don't know how, but I took it off. And like I said, there was no one there. And it felt like forever. It felt like I was there for like 10 minutes or more. Like, it just felt like forever. When like blood is just like coming out through my arm, it's I don't even know what's going on. Like, a family was camping there just because they didn't want to be near other campsites, and they had been camping, and I literally fell where they were at. Because if I would have fallen more forward or more backwards, I'm pretty sure they wouldn't have heard my like screams. So as I fall, they start running to me. There was a guy that was just staring at the road, and he actually sees my ATV, and he sees me fall, and he sees how it happened, and it's the reason why I know how some things happened because he was there to just witness everything and me falling. And he starts telling the sheriff, like, sheriff, they're down. And in the video, you can hear him saying, like, they're down. And they're all just running to me. And mind you, the girl there too, part of this family, was an assistant nurse. I didn't know what was happening, like I said, and they're all just running to me. And then a split second that it happened, they're running to me, but it just felt like forever for me. So I go out through the window and I pick up my arm. And I did not know this until the guy told me, but I thought I picked up my arm, which I did, but he had to pick up the other part of my arm. So like it was connected, but he basically had to pick up my hand, and I was over here picking up like this right here, and he's picking up like the other little piece, which is my hand. Basically it swung, 100%, like, you're fine, everything's good. I knew something was wrong. And I remember just coming out of the window, and they finally pick it up, and I not faint, but I kind of fall down. I think I got up really fast, that I kind of just like went down, and they actually put my head on someone's like thigh, and I'm just looking up at the sky, and they're just running into action. Just thinking to myself, like, this is literally a dream. Like, there is no way that this is happening to me. I had never in my life broken anything. I had never been in a car accident. I had never been in any situation in that way. Like, this doesn't happen to me. This only happens to people in the movies. Like, I only see this in the movies. This cannot, like, I watch this. Yeah, I watch the movies. I don't see it happen to me. But I thought when she was asking me these questions, I was like, oh my, she's asking me all these questions so that she can know what to put on my tombstone. I wasn't even thinking of my parents. And I just kind of like, I'm just kind of like in shock. I don't scream. I don't cry. The whole time, all I'm thinking is, if you waste your energy on crying, you might not make it out here alive. So all I'm thinking is like, I'm too young. And I remember just like looking up in the sky and just kind of just talking to God and just saying like, God, like, I can't die. Like, I'm 19 years old. I'm like, there's so much more I can do here to even spread the gospel. There's so much more. And I'm big on my faith. So I was like, there's so much more I can do here. Like, there's no way this is how my story ends. There's no way I just die like this. And this is the end to my story. Prior to them even coming, I didn't mention this, but I remember like asking the girl, like, am I going to be able to say bye to my parents? Like, I want to at least say bye to them. Because I don't know if I'm gonna die or not. Like, I want to say bye to them. And I remember them just like coming, and that's when my dad comes, and he's like, Mija, can you move your arm? And I'm like, Dad, I can't move my arm. Like, I can't. And he looks at just my hand because it's covered. Mind you, they covered the arm so that I wouldn't really see it. They kind of pull my dad to the side, and they explain to him. They don't explain to him that I'm going to lose my arm. They just explain to him that it's a big accident, and that like, it's a serious matter. Like, she's losing a lot of blood. And then my mom comes, and like, she starts praying over me. And the sheriff, like, he had already put a tourniquet on my arm, like I said. But the sheriff is like trying to call the ambulance, trying to call a helicopter, trying to call just someone, because we are not like 5 minutes from a hospital. We are in Happy Jack. Like, we are camping. Like, I'm pretty sure the next hospital is probably like 2 hours away. So I was like, on top of that, I knew where we were. So I was like, I'm for sure going to die because like there's no hospital near me. Then I hear a helicopter's in the sky trying to land, but he can't land because there's a lot of trees. So all of these things are just like adding up for me just to not come out here alive. They all, even the sheriff, they all start saying like, we need to get this girl to the hospital. Like, we can't wait for them. Like, if we wait for them, she might just bleed out. So they start carrying me into someone's truck, and that's when the ambulance gets there. So then they have to take me out of the truck. And mind you, my arm's already hurting. So any movement you do with my arm already hurts. So I'm like, oh no, just leave me in here. Like, this hurts already. So like, they put me into the ambulance, they take me out. And oh my, I still remember the pain I felt from like just the bumpy road and my arm just moving up and down. And I'm just like, like, I can't go any longer. I'm on the helicopter, and I remember just looking down, and I see so many trees, and I'm like, this is the end. Like, I can't anymore. Like, I don't have energy to keep going. I remember just coming in and out, and I remember just landing on top of the hospital. And I remember just people rushing to me, like nurses just rushing to me.
No one had been there, she would have likely had died from blood loss because it was a traumatic injury.
And I remember just asking them and saying, are you going to be able to save my arm? And I remember they say, no. And I finally just start to want to cry. like with the rest of the energy that I have left, which is really nothing, I tried to cry. And I finally was like, I can finally cry here. You know, if I am close to dying, they can at least help me so that I won't die. So I'm like, you can finally let go. And that's when I finally cry. And I remember when I wake up, I noticed a tube down my throat. And I got more freaked out with just that, honestly. If I'm being honest, I think that was like the tip to the iceberg. I think that's what it's called. It was just the big, just to add on top of that, I was like, I'm really dying. Like in all of these movies that I've ever seen, when people are in comas or like, you know, they have things, you know, they can't talk. So I'm finally like, girl, you're in a coma. Like, you're really going to die now. Like, you're really dying. So then I tell the nurse that I kind of want them to take it off. I want them to take off like the tube down my throat, and I write it down. And then I look to my side and I notice that I don't have an arm. And I'm like, there's no way. And he basically explains that I didn't have an arm to begin with when I came in the hospital. Like, this was good, which is what I still have. And then this part was like crushed up. I don't know why me. You can say I have trust issues, but I still ask him if I can see a picture of my arm. Like, I'm still like, can I see a picture of my arm? And they show me a picture of my arm. And I actually see it, and it actually does look like just bloody, and it looks like crushed. There's no way they were able to put that. There was going to be nothing. It was just going to be all gushy. And, you know, the razor basically like ran over my arm. So as I'm in the hospital, the doctor explains to me why they weren't able to save my arm. And I still remember just in shock. And I remember just trying to cry the best. And I was trying to hold it together because I didn't want to cry in front of everyone. But I remember just crying. And I didn't want, mind you, this was during COVID. So I didn't want anyone to see me. I felt like someone passed away. You know, like I felt like a part of me, like someone just ripped something out of me. And I know sometimes we take our arms and legs for granted. And I knew that was me before. Like, oh, I have an arm, I have a leg. Like, I use this, I use that. But the amount of like pain that one has when something is just taken away from them. Like, I had an arm my 19 years old living. This was my arm that I had been through memories and had done so many things with, carried me through so many things through high school, helped me pick things up, helped me push things away, helped me. I know there's people that are born this way, but I wasn't born with one arm. You know, I was born with two. I don't know what life outside of two arms is, you know, and I know people have grown up with one arm, one leg, but they've adapted to that all of their lives. I'm not saying it makes it any easier, but they adapted to it their whole lives. So by the time they were 19, I'm pretty sure they already knew how to do things. I'm in college, like I work 2 jobs. Like, what am I going to do? I only have one arm. I remember, like I said, I wasn't able to have family over, and the nurse was amazing too. He helped me through a lot of it too, like just being there for me. And I was in intense care, so I only had one nurse taking care of me. And I had to go into surgery again because I'm not sure why, but I had to go into surgery again because during the surgery, they had to basically do whatever they could because I was losing so much blood. And then after I was finally stable, the next surgery was like a little more, I was already stable so they can do the other procedure. Sunday comes, and I remember the night comes, and there's no nurses really coming to see me. Like, it's just me and just me alone and God, just me and God. And I remember just laying in my bed and finally just sobbing because I haven't been able to just cry. Like when something's really sad and you just cry and cry. Like, I remember just in the night, just laying in bed and just finally just being able to cry. And my mind was blocked. Like, I just felt helpless, and I just felt like I don't know how I was going to live life like this. I don't know what I was going to do. And I remember just God reminding me in my sorrow, in like I was like, I didn't want to accept anything else besides the fact that I was hopeless and I don't know what I was going to do. And I remember just God reminding me and just telling me, like, you're going to be okay. Like, you're still alive. Like, you only lost an arm, but that I still have life. And I remember just carrying that with me because, mind you, I was in a state where I was like in denial and I didn't want to accept that there was anything else but to be hopeless and anything else but to just be not disencouraged. I was just disencouraged. I wasn't encouraged. And I remember just God reminding me of that is why I am the way I am today and why I ran with that. And I still remember just going back home on Tuesday and people were visiting me and they didn't know what to say to me. Like, my whole house was full of people, and I still remember them like not having words to say to me, but me just having words to say to them, and having the same way I'm talking about this story, the same way I was explaining to them that God was good, that God was faithful, and that this happened, but that I still have life, and that I'm going to be okay. And basically running with what God reminded me of, and just by him telling me that he was going to be with me through all of this, I ran with that, and that was my strength. He's the one that gave me strength. I tried to do it on my own, and I just can't, honestly. I remember my friends and my family were there, and, you know, it wasn't like the easiest thing. I'm not going to lie and be like, yeah, it was the easiest thing ever. So I still remember just, God giving me strength. My family was like they were super supportive, and that's what like helped me, encouraged me. And I remember just having 2 months with my boyfriend, and I actually wanted to break up with him. I was like, you have to find someone else. Like, he didn't even want to break up with me. I wanted to break up with him. I wanted him to have a girlfriend with 2 arms. I wanted him to not go through all of this with me. And I just didn't want him to go through this whole like process with me. And he was like, girl, like, you're crazy. Like, not crazy, but he was like, no, like, I'm going to go through this with you. And well, that same boyfriend is my husband now. So now I'm married, and I'm a stay-at-home wife, but I also do content on the side. I feel like it's been like a roller coaster, of course, a lot of learning. I now cook a lot of meals. A lot of my content is like literally cooking videos where I show people mac and cheese and recipes, and I show them my day-to-day life and what I do in the morning and how I do my hair. I actually do my updos like this one right here. I do my hair in a bun. Like, I go to the gym, and it didn't stop me from living my life. I always, now when people ask me, honestly, I don't even notice that my left arm is missing. Like, I know it's missing, but I do so much with my right arm that it feels like my left arm never really left, because like I tie my hair, I tie my shoes, I do so much that I'm like, what was the left arm here for again? I'm just kidding. But I definitely feel like where there's a will, there's a way. Like, there has been so many ways to like do so many things. So